I am in Bristol today and I've come to the Arnos Vale Cemetery. This is one of the large public cemeteries. When the churchyards became full, then these large cemeteries were opened up. And this is the first to open in Bristol, and it was opened in 1837. Incidentally, directly opposite is St Mary Radcliffe Cemetery, and just down to the left of Arnos is the Catholic Cemetery. I've not been here before. The plan is just to walk around and explore and see some of the more interesting memorials. Just inside the gate on the right hand side is the memorial to the soldiers who died in World War I, or some of them. Just on the right hand side as we go into the gate, there's this tall obelisk, and this one's the Reverend John A.D. Pratt, the children's preacher, the unwearied servant of Sunday schools. And when we look round on the front face of this monument, it's been carved out to show him presumably teaching the children at a Sunday school. This is the grave of Robin Geoffrey Winter Smith. It says star of the Magnificent Seven, but that's not the film. He died aged 29 at Elstree in front of 10,000 people when on his motorcycle he attempted to leap over 30 Rolls Royces and crashed. This was built as a memorial to an Indian gentleman who initially was buried elsewhere and then was moved to be here. Raja Ram Mohan Roy. It says here he was a social reformer, religious thinker and activist. He fought for women's rights, religious reform, children's education and against the caste system. Tall one here to Elisha Smith Robinson, famous paper making magnate, one time the largest paper business in the country. Alongside him, Mary, the wife of Augustus Phillips. This is the tomb of W.D. Wills of W.D. and H.O. Wills Cigarette Company, very important people in the history of Bristol. William Herpath, Senior JP, Professor of Chemistry. John Glendenning ministered the gospel as pastor of a congregational church at Huddersfield, at Uxbridge and at the Tabernacle in Bristol. A very tall one there in the background. And just round the corner here, a very ornate one. This is the very tall one. Difficult to get up there, but it appears to be to Thomas Reynolds. This is the very ornate one. And the details on the stone are for the family of Charles Wathen, who was a very wealthy clothier in the city, and it says he died suddenly in the council chamber in 1893. This is the other half of W.D. and H.O. Wills. This is Henry Overton Wills, tobacco magnate, and just alongside him here is Henry Overton Wills, number 2, Junior. We have an unusual name on this one. This is Urijar Rhys Thomas, for 39 years the beloved minister of Redland Park Congregational Church. A nicely carved stone here. The angel is brought out in relief, and the stone is to Elizabeth, the wife of Sidney Thomas Gardner, who died suddenly in 1924. Edward Hodder, General Engineer, died May the 13th, 1938. This is the memorial to George Muller, well known for founding a whole series of orphanages, founder of the Ashley Down Orphanage, died in 1898. I'm right up in the high part of the cemetery now, very heavily wooded area, and here tucked away there's one of the Commonwealth war graves to W. Broad, able seaman, HMS Vivid, 1916, age 38. Harry Phillips, dearly beloved wife of Harry Phillips, Stephen Walter. There are others here, completely buried in the undergrowth. And wherever you go through these woods are more stones. Alfred John Smith, an alderman and Lord Mayor of this city. Frederick John Grant, aged 5 years and 7 months. And then his brother Frederick John, aged 2 years. And then the father and the mother. There are just so many here which are partially hidden and could be rediscovered. You could spend weeks here and find so much interesting information. James William, only and beloved son of David and Joanna Evans, died aged 20. Here's one to James Wright, son-in-law of the late George Muller. We saw him a little earlier, the man who set up the orphanages. And George Muller's successor in the directorate of the Ashley Down Orphanage. One here to Herbert Wallace Wyatt, who passed away after a long and painful illness in his 50th year. There are a few war graves here, scattered around this area. This one's to A.J. Dodge, gunner A.J. Dodge, of the Royal Field Artillery, 1919. This one is Private W.T. Marshall of the Devonshire Regiment, 1919. Here, as part of the family grave, is Private W.H. Pratton of the Essex Regiment, 1919. W.E. Tucker, Royal Garrison Artillery, 1919, age 30. Sergeant Major H.C. Bonner, Gloucestershire Regiment, 1918. A horizontal stone here, Private Herbert Tubby, Hampshire Regiment, died in 1918, aged 18, gone but not forgotten. This is a war grave to J.A. McGill, Petty Officer, And behind is the main family memorial, Joseph Albert McGill, first class petty officer, HMS Albion, 1917, age 40, for his country's cause. Up in one of the top corners of the cemetery is this area of war graves. Just a few of those that are in here, over 600 are actually in the cemetery, and there's just a number of them here. They all appear to be sailors. Looking at the names as I go down the row here, various ships, HMS Victory there, HMS Osprey, HMS Daedalus, just plain Royal Navy, HMS Pintail, HMS Manchester, HMS Pembroke 4, HMS Argon Gaunt, HMS Rook, and HMS Vivid. And there's I just picked up this memorial hidden in the trees here. It's completely surrounded by a big heavy metal frame. The inside, I think, may be wood. Just an interesting difference, a way to do a memorial. One here with a Latin inscription on the reverse, and is that the Star of David? Looks like it to me, but on this side we have John Price Kirby. This stone was erected by the Beaufort Lodge of Freemasons, number 103, as a token of esteem and regard to their brother, who was upwards of 59 years a respected member of that lodge. Standing almost on its own in the woods here is this very tall obelisk. The inscription is very hard to read, but it appears to be doggerel. There's a warning on this path to be careful because of dangerous structures. Now, these large memorials down there are quite impossible to get to. It looks as though they're slowly clearing the trees away. One here to the Saunders. But just panning to the left, you can see there's a big hole in the ground here where the tomb has collapsed in. And it would be very dangerous to walk down there. And then around the next corner we come across this very large obelisk. On one side it seems to have the surname Stroud. But on this side I see Charles Phipps Lucas of the Elms, Nottingham. This is amongst all the fallen and broken tombs. Another one here about to disappear down the hillside. And it seems that this is a memorial to various members of the Townsend family, including Captain Townsend, who actually died at Madeira. A large family tomb here seems to be the Ball family. And then we look at this big tall obelisk here, and again it's the Ball family. Frederick Henry Ball, who died at his residence, Upper Belgrave Road, Durham Down. Memorial here mentions Lieutenant General James Fitzgerald, HM Madras Army, who died at Clifton in 1871. Sarah Bishop Lucas, the wife of John Lucas, merchant of this city. Some amazing detail on this tomb. Thomas Lucas Esquire, but the workmanship in that is just splendid. And then deep in the undergrowth, almost impossible to notice it, is a big tomb to Henry Abbot of the Priory, Abbotsleigh, Somerset, a solicitor, and his widow. And turning the corner, here's quite the tallest obelisk I have seen in the whole cemetery. It is enormous. On the front it says Henry Nelsum with an M on the end. Top name seems to be William Rogers. Then Harriet, his wife, and Harriet, their daughter. An amazing sculpture here on 4 piers, and details of the person underneath, but unfortunately almost impossible to read. Robert Leonard Matthews. Now this is something different in the way of a memorial. It's a canopy, and the dedication is on what appears to be a book. Walter John Whiting, clerk in Holy Orders, present at the battles of Chillian. And the rest of that's not straightforward to read, at least in this light. This is one to Joseph Bryant, a rope manufacturer of this city. Died age 57 in 1902. This is dedicated to William Brooke of Key Street in Bristol, a wine merchant. James Arthur Gardner, later the Royal Fusiliers. Captain Francis Geary Gardner of the Royal Marines. David Jeffries of Hatfield Hall, Millsbridge. One here with a image of a young man with a football at his feet, and it is to James Charles Alfred Saunders, Bristol showman and professional footballer who played for Bristol City, Crystal Palace, Rochdale and Exeter City, 1932 to 2007. This one here mentions the second name down, George Edmund Eastwood, who fell at Passchendaele in the Great War 1917, and he was aged 28. Well, I've been here in this graveyard for something over 3 hours now, and I haven't even scratched the surface of what there is to see. So much up in the woods is almost inaccessible, but it is absolutely fascinating. One of the most interesting of graveyards, and you could really spend many days here getting to know the interesting memorials that are in this graveyard. I can thoroughly recommend a visit here. Till the next time.